Hey guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. My name is Liam, here with Jack.
Hello, hello.
And today we're going to be doing a video which we've had to wait for quite a while to stew and get the opinions of the Quarry in. But as you've read by the title and you've seen the thumbnail, we are doing an Until Dawn versus the Quarry review. So essentially, Jack and I have handpicked out 10 categories. They range from story, characters, gameplay, horror, sound design, trophies, location, graphics, display, and choices. We've done our grades out of 5 for each section. So we've graded the games out of 50 in total, and then we're going to lump them together out of 100, and we're going to compare them, and we'll see who comes out on top. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Okay, so I've given Until Dawn 4 out of 5, and I've given The Quarry 3 out of 5. So I suppose the reason why, I'll start with Until Dawn. The reason why I've given Until Dawn a 4 is because I was just more invested in the mystery. I feel like Supermassive handled this particular thing so much better than they did in The Quarry. You had all these different areas of like Josh and the loss of his sister. You had him becoming the psycho. You had the stranger. You didn't know what he was about. And then you had the Wendigo, and you also had the background story with the miners. And it was all within this big mystery bubble that wasn't predictable. And you couldn't guess what was going on as you were playing it, unless, frankly, you're a genius and you was looking at all the clues. Whereas I found with the Quarry, and to be fair, it could be because that before the Quarry we did a lot of digging, a lot of analysing and stuff, and we sort of found these things, but it felt as though like by the end of the prologue I had a pretty good handle on what the game was about. I knew that the Hacketts would be allies, I knew that Chris would be the werewolf, and that Travis wasn't necessarily a bad guy in the prologue, which obviously it does dampen that initial buzz that you want from it when you're experiencing a story. Like the twists weren't as impactful and such. So the reason that they didn't get 5 out of 5, and I'll start with Until Dawn, is to do with the ending. So honestly, I feel like the story's pretty flawless apart from the ending. Like it always ends up with the characters being in the lodge, and as iconic as it is with the Wendigo on the chandelier and the don't move segments, it just feels like something else could have been done. Maybe it could have been a different location, or there could have just been something else going on that could have added to the drama somewhat. As far as the Quarry, obviously the Quarry does get props for like having multiple endings in like different ending locations, but as we covered in the podcast, it felt underwhelming. Like if you do everything right, then you have the segment with Laura and she's literally just shooting the main villain Silas in the back, and that's pretty much it. And obviously Silas himself, he hasn't been enhanced that much in terms of being a wolf. Like it's just that he looks similar to the other ones. There's no white fur, and so yeah, that's why it doesn't get 5 out of 5. Another thing for me as well is pacing. So I do think the Quarry's better paced than Until Dawn. Obviously it does have chapter 7 where things get a little bit slow, but neither get full marks because there are too many moments in Until Dawn where you're walking around with a character and it can go on for like 3/4 of an hour, and all you're doing is picking up and finding clues with the odd cutscene that's not very exciting to watch.
So for story, I've given Until Dawn a 5 and The Quarry a 4. So disclaimer before, I did mark this out of 10. I was wrong to do so. Until Dawn was a 9 and then I halved it. But basically, Until Dawn just pips The Quarry slightly for me. And a main reason for this is to do with twists. I feel with The Quarry, the moment it's revealed, it's wolves, which you can figure out as early as the prologue. The game just is very as it comes and you expect it, and there's no sort of surprise. And I'm not saying you need twists to make a game good, but twists really do help with me. And Until Dawn absolutely thrilled me. Like Jack put, you had the stranger going about with a flamethrower. We didn't know what that was about. We had a potential angle with like the spirit of the sisters. Then you had Josh, who was just pranking. And out of nowhere, you've got these random monsters on the mountain. And it was just layers upon layers. But it didn't feel like too much either. And I just really enjoyed it. Story-wise, I just think it really trumps the Quarry. Also, I will mention that I think it's important to look at iconic moments about what you remember from the game. I think we can all safely say that when we look back at Until Dawn, we remember the Wendigos breaking into the lodge, the Psycho chasing Sam, Josh's traps while he's tormenting Ashley and Chris. I'm not saying the Quarry won't have non-memorable moments, because I'll certainly remember things such as Laura blowing Constance's face up in Hackett House, and especially the early scenes at the lodge where they're all gathered together. But I just think that in 10 years, I will remember certain key scenes from Until Dawn more, which is why it pips it by 1 point for me. Despite its flaws, it's really high up for me. So, characters, I've given Until Dawn a 4 and The Quarry a 4. Now, this is very close. I feel like when you rank out of 5, it can be a little limited. If I had to pick which one was better, it would be The Quarry, but not by a massive stretch. So, The Quarry, it has more characters, and they feel a lot more real. For example, you take, the supposed bitch of the girl of the group, and we've got someone like Emma. I love her layers of like the whole vlog dynamic and the reasoning behind everything. Every character feels so real, and I can almost like relate one of the characters in The Quarry to an actual person. It just falls flat a little bit that certain people aren't used properly. It just absolutely ceases certain character development, such as Nick. And then it tries to shoehorn all these random ships in that I don't think, are totally needed, which almost prevents it from getting a 5 to me. I also would have given it a 5 if my favourite character, Laura, was like absolutely my favourite character in the world. She's my favourite, but I don't think she's like outstandingly amazing where I'm shoving a 5 on that. Until Dawn only gets a 4 as well, because although the characters do feel a little more caricatured, they're still really believable. So much more so than the DPA characters, which would be down in the 3s or 2s for me. So yeah, I've kind of put them on par together. Really good set, but they all get a 4 out of 5 for me.
Okay, so for my character category, I've given Until Dawn a 3 and I've given The Quarry a 4. So I think the reason that The Quarry beats Until Dawn in this category for me is because what Supermassive did with the characters themselves. As Liam has already said, in Until Dawn they did feel more like the classic horror trope characters. You think of Mike being the typical jock slash action hero, Matt being the shy guy, Emily being the quote-unquote bitch, Ashley being the shy girl, and so on, right? Whereas with The Quarry, they did have those elements in there, but they played around with them. So, of course, Jacob was the jock, but they did show that he had a sensitive side. You think with Emma, like, she was positioned as the bitch, kind of, but as Liam said, there was reasons given for that, whether it was to nudge Abby into a situation where she could get with Nick, or whether it was for her own reasons, where she was basically saying that she was being OTT in order to make people happy. I think another reason why The Quarry does better than Until Dawn is to do with the acting performances. And by no means am I shitting on Until Dawn in the actors in that game, but I don't know, like it just felt like another level for The Quarry, and it's actually the only character that I'd say fell low par was perhaps like, is it Justin Smith, the guy who plays Ryan. I think every other character delivers somewhat of a solid performance in the game, and I think considering that there's more characters in The Quarry as well, they did a very good job in order to make the characters that you see on screen memorable. What stops them both getting 5 out of 5? is this whole sidelining thing. So again, in the Quarry, you see Nick gets sidelined, and towards the end of the game when Laura comes in, there's so many incomplete endings where characters are just left by the wayside. And I think with Until Dawn you can see this as well. Like, if Chris manages to stay alive, he hardly says a word towards the end. I think of Jess as well. She's in the game early doors, she's then not, but nonetheless it was like, I wish there was a little bit more from that character, because it really did look like that she was going on an arc. So yeah, that's my choice. So in the gameplay category, I've given Until Dawn a 4 out of 5, and I've given The Quarry a 3 out of 5. The first thing I'm going to touch on is the use of camera. I think it was beautifully done in Until Dawn, the way they used camera angles in this game. You knew that there was a threat, that there was a presence in amongst the trees, and they really amped that up by the use of the camera. So when you're walking, you're stationary, sometimes you're following the character, and it gives that illusion that something's watching you. And I think that that can just add to the whole horror atmosphere that they were trying to put through. I actually didn't mind the camera in The Quarry. Like, I think you're a lot closer to the character. I think there's an argument in itself that that could go a long way as to explain why I think the characters in The Quarry are better, because you've got more of a point of view angle from them, because you're literally right behind them. But nonetheless, I think for what Until Dawn was trying to achieve, I think it did better there. In terms of the QTEs, I'm going to say that Until Dawn is better as well, because I just think that the QTEs in The Quarry are far too easy. As I've said before, I don't think I know that I did not fail a QTE in The Quarry unless I purposely failed to. Whether it was the don't breathe, whether it was like moving the analog stick, anything along those lines. I think as well that the combat encounters were actually very similar in both games. It's literally just move a gun to shoot. So there was nothing gameplay wise on The Quarry I felt could one up Until Dawn.
I've gone across the board as well with 4s out of 5s for everyone here as well. I think the games do things similarly but also quite different, but they fall flat in certain areas, which balances them out. If I take, say, camera angles, for example, Until Dawn has the scarier ones where they're fixed. It's kind of like Resident Evil, where sometimes it almost looks like you're looking through a CCTV camera, a bit like the old PS1, like Dino Crisis style games. But then you sort of, I really like the fact that Quarry modernized it. You kind of had the camera really followed behind the back of the character. It felt maybe a bit more user-friendly and kind of wider accessible, which is a point we've spoke about in the past to a wider audience. Definitely a lot more user-friendly. But then, yeah, we look at things like Jack mentioned, the QTEs. I do think the Quarry ones were way, way, way easier. I know there's a patch which, is going to fix that issue, but it really took the sting of the jeopardy out of the game for me. Until Dawn, I definitely failed a lot of QTEs. I nearly killed Emily in the grinder, for example. And it's terrifying stuff. If we look at, say, the don't move versus the don't breathe section, this one will always be subjective. It's very difficult to say. I do know that a load of people did rage with the don't move sequences. A load of people had issues where they could swear to death the controller was still, but then for some reason there were sensor issues. So I think it was heavily reliant on having a really good controller, for example. The don't breathe ones are a bit user-friendly, and I know that the DPA games later came in with these heartbeat sequences, so it's always going to be subjective about which ones we prefer. But yeah, as you could see across the board there, as I mentioned, guys, there were pros and cons in different areas, but I do think they somewhat balance each other out. So as you can tell, guys, horror was my biggest sort of shift. Until Dawn I've given a 4, and The Quarry I have given a 2. Now, the reason for this being is that the Until Dawn, the first time I played it, it might be that I was younger and the horror got to me more. It might be that I played it in scarier conditions. But I remember being quite scared of Until Dawn the first time I played it. Walking through that sanatorium for the first time with that wolf shadow. Yeah, like running away from the Wendigos. I was petrified for like the lives of the characters. And it was very jump scare heavy as well. And although jump scares I can find boring at times, especially when you get through three and you expect the fourth, and it can get really tiring. At least the horror was there. And we have to remember, guys, this is advertised as a horror game. Certain horror junkies will buy these games to get jump scared and to feel horror thrills. If you shift over to the Quarry, I don't really remember ever feeling scared or in jeopardy. This might be because I trusted the Hacketts the whole way and I just didn't really feel scared. But yeah, the jump scares were non-existent. The only time I really was spooked was potentially when the wolf was in the lodge, creeping up the stairs towards Caitlin, and we didn't really know where it was coming from. Yeah, I never was terrified in the Quarry. I never really got spooked. You could argue that, you know, the lights in the garage or the junkyard scene was pretty eerie. I quite liked that. But yeah, for me, Until Dawn massively trumps the Quarry. And I think another big thing to mention, it really does it for me, is the Dr. Hill versus the Eliza scenes. Dr. Hill just felt so eerie. And as we were going through the book and we were picking which characters we preferred, and we were picking up poisons with like what scares us, our phobias, it really felt like we were personalizing our own horror game. When I picked spiders, I had a spider go over my CCTV camera later, while it didn't for my brother who didn't pick the spider. Our whole room around Dr. Hill was getting tailored to us, and it just felt so personal and horror-like and awesome. We didn't get anything like that with the Quarry. Eliza's scenes were really cool with the tarot cards, but Until Dawn ones and Dr. Hill just really trumped it from a horror aspect, which is why Until Dawn gets a 4, but the Quarry unfortunately falls massively flat to me, and it only gets a 2.
Okay, so in the horror category for me, I've given Until Dawn a 4. I've given the Quarry a 1. So like Liam, there's a big divide here. And I suppose what I'll do before I go into the reasons why, I'm going to sort of say about the Quarry first. So I think it's quite obvious, given Supermassive's move to change the QTEs so that they're accessible to a wider audience, I think that premise and that general thing could be amplified towards the horror experience as well, because for me it didn't have the same mood and atmosphere as Until Dawn. But what I would say is that I don't necessarily mind that, more towards the beginning of the game. In fact, I quite liked the fact that you had a horror sequence and then the opening of the game served as like the calm before the storm. You know, you have these moments where, you know, when you're playing as Abby and you can just take your time and wander around the camp, you know, the sun's out, it's bleeding through the trees. You know that the horror's coming, so you can just revel in these tiny moments. And I think the same as like Truth or Dare. So like, it's not horror, but they're really memorable scenes for me. But nonetheless, you compare it to Until Dawn, as Liam said, they are billed as horror experiences. You're straight in there with the blizzard. It's dark, it's snowy. You can hear like sort of the crunch of the snow as if something's following you. You've got tapping into the story. You've got the whole mystery with the stranger. And obviously that there's this weird presence with strange vision that's lurking out in the trees. There's just so much going on. You know, and I think even with the Quarry, when the wolves were a threat, I never really felt that scared in comparison with the wolves and the Wendigos. I think they're cool, but they just didn't grab me, you know. As for why neither gets 5 out of 5, I'll say that, don't get me wrong, when I first played Until Dawn, it was scary, especially the moments where like you haven't played it at all. It's your blind playthrough, you're wandering through the trees as Mike and Jess and the music's coming through. So yeah, no, but like the music was really effective in that. However, having played games like PT and Visage, a psychological horror game, I couldn't give Until Dawn a 5 because there's levels to this, and them two games offer a far more rich horror experience for me. I think Until Dawn, it does rely on jump scares a little bit. Of course, you do have the stuff towards the end with Josh, which is like very eerie and sort of psychologically driven, but it never got me to the point like it did with those other two games, whereas it's really edge of your seat and you wouldn't want to play it in the dark. Okay, so for the sound design category, and obviously this encompasses sound effects and music, I've given Until Dawn a 4. I've given The Quarry a 5. So I'll start with Until Dawn. There's nothing really wrong with the sound effects in Until Dawn. Some of the things that come to mind straight away are the blizzard, like I mentioned. When you're walking as the characters, you can hear the snow crunching under their feet. Like these little details that just make the experience far more immersive. The screams and just the acting was, was good as well. I mentioned the music as well. Again, when you're walking through the trees, you've got that sort of slowly build up of dread coming. 'Cause you're thinking something's going to happen soon. Something's going to happen soon. It's quite a unique experience. But as you know, I love the introduction of the music in The Quarry. I think there are certain songs that I've gone back and listened to since, some which I recognised. So obviously, like I mentioned, the Monkeys before, and then there was the rendition of Fly Me to the Moon. But as well, what I appreciated about the music was that it was unexpected. I didn't expect them to put that in there. But 2, it just tonally, like whoever made the choices, the music fitted with what you were watching. And that's something that I'll really give The Quarry props for, because they were really trying to go for this cinematic experience. And I was sat there thinking, like, this is what you'd expect in a movie, the way the music sort of seeps into the background as you're watching a scene unfold. So, yeah, that's why I've given those grades.
Yeah, guys, so as you can tell, for me, perfect scores 5 and 5. Jack put it perfectly. The Quarry does an outstanding job. Such as the opening where you've got Laura and Max in the car. I specifically remember Laura, when her eye gets gouged out and then she's like running to the mirror, and then you've got the badass music. Same for Emma after the zip wire. The song selections are very spot on. And yeah, they really do achieve that cinematic experience. Also, cherry on the cake that Siobhan Williams has her own song in the game. I think that's a really neat touch. You look at Until Dawn, and obviously there's less sort of known songs. You've got the Oh Death, and then Jess has got a song on her phone. Otherwise, I think it's just score. But the reason, I've given them perfect scores is I think they match the games perfectly. The sound design is just absolutely spot on for me. The Quarry goes for that kind of guitar-y, banjo, kind of creepy sound. But the reason I've given Until Dawn a 5 as well is there is something that just is biased calling to me that just really captures me about that soundtrack on the icy mountain. For example, when you hit the pause menu where you're playing as Jess and Mike walking up to the private lodge, you've got that kind of like piano chimes in the background. I don't know what it is, but that sound to me is just absolutely perfection, and it still sticks with me to this day. It's probably like not as easy listening to as The Quarry, because you could probably find, the playlist on Spotify. Well, I doubt you can do that with Until Dawn. I think so anyway. But in terms of just what's actually captured my heart more, the Until Dawn one just really does it. So I just couldn't resist. I had to give both perfect scores. Yeah, so for this one, guys, The Quarry pips Until Dawn. I've gone for 5 for The Quarry, and I've gone for 4 with Until Dawn. Now, I actually somewhat regret these grades already, because I am sticking with them. It is partially because of my shift. However, as you can see on the screen here, here's just a few stats for you guys. So the Until Dawn, you only get 19 trophies, including the Platinum. Now, 8 of them are moment-based, 4 of them are clue-based, and 5 of them are ending-based. Not very much. If you like it simple, way, way better, and, there's nothing wrong with that. But you look over at The Quarry, and there's just a lot more to do. Whether this is too difficult, and if they went a little too far, like I would argue the DPA games do. The Quarry has 41 trophies. so it probably feels a lot more rewarding if you was to platinum the game. There's ones in there based on the endings you get. There's chapter completion ones. There's ones to find specific moments. They've got stuff to do with like the gameplays and shooting sequences and don't breathe sequences. And then there's clue-based ones, and they also just have one for playing a specific movie mode. I just picked the Quarry over Until Dawn here because I just think, like I say, more rewarding when you eventually complete it, and also there's just a lot more variety and graft in there.
Okay, so in the trophy category for me, I've given Until Dawn a 3 and the Quarry a 4. So the reason why the Quarry hasn't got perfect scores is because in my own experience I have been at the wrong end of a glitch, namely the one where it's the Eliza one. I think it's called Hard Pass, and I did a playthrough, I think it was my second playthrough, and I was purposely collecting all the tarot cards, and I was completely ignoring Eliza when she said, do you want to see what the future could be? Got to the end of the game and I didn't get it, and it turns out that it was a glitch, and it left a bitter taste in my mouth because you sort of put a lot of hours in for these achievements, and it just wasn't ideal for me. And honestly, to touch on what Liam said, like, I think it trumps Until Dawn as well because of like the sheer amount of variation. Like, I think it's a really fun achievement to get the characters infected, and from looking at the list as well, I'd say that with Until Dawn, a lot of the achievements could be done in one swoop, which, to be fair, I do like that, but at the same time, really, you want to be playing it multiple times in order to get your money's worth and to see different clips and stuff, and that's what I think the Quarry offers at the end of the day. Okay, so in the location category, I've given Until Dawn a 4 and the Quarry a 5. So what I'll make clear is that I'm not judging on the mood of the game, because if it was based on the mood, Until Dawn would win because of, like I said, the weather, the darkness, and the fact that in the Quarry there's more levity and sunshine and all that jazz. But for me, if you're talking about the raw location, Quarry has to win because there's just so many places. You've got the main lodge, you've got the smaller lodges, you've got the pool house, you've got the pier, you've got the island, you've got the scrapyard. I could go on and on. With Until Dawn, there's moments in the game where you are just sort of wandering around the same places a couple of times, and I don't mind that. But if I was being ultra nitpicky, then I would say that, do you know what I mean? Like, I wish there was a couple more places. Like, you go around the sanatorium twice, you wander around the lodge a couple of times. There's a couple of specific pathways that you use. If that world was a little bit bigger, it could have been an even fitting with the Quarry.
Fun thing here, guys. I've done the polar opposite of Jack. Potential future debate episode. I've given Until Dawn a 5 for location, and I've given the Quarry a 4. Now, I don't disagree with Jack points whatsoever. I love that in the Quarry you get all these different locations, from the island to the Hackett house, which I thought was designed immensely well, just the summer camp. I've gone more for just my preference of setting. So I'll start with the Quarry, and I'll say that it obviously went for a very on-the-nose 80s horror feel, and they achieved that by having maybe, arguably overused, but a potentially very saturated, looked at classic 80s setting, which is a summer camp. We've seen Sleepaway Camp and Friday the 13th, where it's just a killer killing a load of horny teens on, at a summer camp. And there's nothing wrong with that. It really achieved that gritty 80s horror film classic trope that, we kind of miss, we don't really see nowadays. But like I say, it just felt a little too on the nose for me, like a carbon copy. Until Dawn for me was just something slightly refreshing and different. I really felt isolated on those cold, dark mountains. I do agree it could have, spiced up the location a little bit more. But I love the fact that we had the sanatorium, we had the mines, we had the lodges and different parts to it, and the snowy pathways. And even the mines that went deeper, such as Emily discovered. It just was really chilling and different. And I just really enjoyed my time up there on the mountains. So it's why for me, Until Dawn trumps the Quarry in the location category. So as you can tell, guys, I've given the Quarry a 5 and Until Dawn a 4. There's not much to say, guys. The Quarry always was going to have advantage on this one because it was released on a later platform, and we just look at how far technology and graphics have come nowadays. The Quarry really helped by the fact that, as Jack said earlier, the acting ensemble was just amazing, and the really good graphics were just really well done to capture like Ted Raimi and Halston Stage's face and their expressions. You look at Until Dawn, and the graphics are insane. Don't get me wrong, I still rate them. They still hold out to this day. It's just, for example, you'd see like the eyes maybe follow the room a little bit weirdly, and I just can't compare it on the same level as the Quarry, which is why I've gone 5 and 4 here.
So in the graphics category for me, I've given Until Dawn a 5 and I've given the Quarry a 5. So full house all round in this one. As Liam said, obviously the Quarry is a more recent game. Let's face it, it's a beautiful game. I mean, I played it on Xbox One. I do have the Xbox Series X version, but unfortunately not the Xbox Series X. So time will tell what it looks like on that. Overall, just a beautiful game. It looks very polished. Some of the environments are stunning. And I know that Until Dawn is an older game. I suppose for me, it's like it still holds up brilliantly. Like this game, it's what, 2015, was it 2014? Like, this game's nearly 10 years old, and for me it still holds up today. I found that there would be equally as many graphically there are equally as many issues in a graphic sense for Until Dawn as there was the Quarry, in my experience anyway. So full marks all round. So for the display category, I've given Until Dawn a 4 and the Quarry a 3. So not a lot in it again, but I think back to like Until Dawn, you had just the general display. You had like the relationship bars with with the various characters, which you didn't really have in the Quarry. Even just the layout, I think where the Quarry goes wrong is that you've got to like scroll down and go beyond, whereas with Until Dawn you had all like the butterflies, and it was just presented in a lot more, it was just a lot more easy on the eye, and you didn't really have to do as much. Having said that, I really do like what the Quarry did by showing where all the characters were. Like, you could go to the map and you could see, oh, Abby's at the lodges, oh, Jacob's at the lodge or the pool house, or whatever. So like, props to them. There's not a lot in it, and just generally, like I said, the navigation, it was just easier to get around with the tabs on Until Dawn and than it was on the Quarry.
Yeah, great. So as for myself, the Quarry gets a 4 and Until Dawn gets a 5. Now, when I did this list out of 10, there are a lot of 9s across the board, which is what resulted in the 5s. This Until Dawn 5 was a 10, and it was my only 10 that I gave out on this list. I think the Until Dawn pause menu and navigation system is my favourite in video game history, maybe. I am obsessed with it. From everything Jack mentioned there, the relationship bars, which we didn't get in the previous game, the faces that are kind of side on. I don't know why, but I find that more powerful than the Quarry face on ones, where you could kind of wiggle them around a little bit. And as Ashley would receive a black eye and people would get scarred faces, you would see that, and you would see like kind of their health deteriorate on screen almost. I just thought it was iconic. Also, with the pause menu of the piano chimes in the background and that little kind of metal banging, it almost sounds like someone was tapping a radiator in a different room. I felt it was iconic. The relationship bars Jack mentioned was really handy. It was really nice to see that if you had bad dialogue with someone, it would go lower, and then you would feel like the consequence for your actions. While that really felt like it was missing in the Quarry for me. Yeah, and Jack is right. The Quarry does do very well by bringing in the map. I liked it. It was handy for me to see where certain characters were each time. There would be the display to show when they were dead, so you would get kind of reminded of your character statuses. But yeah, I just think Until Dawn just massively trumps it, especially with that face menu. It's the real big thing for me. I also just think in terms of font and the general colors that are going on, I really like the teal shades going on with the Until Dawn menu. And when you're presented with a choice as well, I just think the Until Dawn one's a little bit more simple and nicely presented, where you've got a white text on either side of the head, so it's kind of almost like an angel and devil on the shoulder play, while the Quarry kind of went for that 80s classic kind of pixely font at the bottom. I don't hate it, it just felt a little out of place, and I think I needed time to get used to it. Another thing I think, display-wise, which is stronger from Until Dawn's front, is, for example, when we have a QuickTime event, you've got like the X button that's there, and you have the little timer, and it really makes you feel rushed, like I've got to hit that X button. The Quarry one, I wasn't a really fan of that kind of really stuck out lime green. The bright colors just almost took the horror element away from me, and it just felt too out of place, which is why Until Dawn, massive bars, I cannot put the Quarry in the same category as it. Final category, guys, choices. I've split it again. I've gone 4 and 4. Now, I think the Quarry does it way, way better in the sense that you've got different, more different endings where characters can slightly end in different locations. Like you look at the scene 9 in the Hackett house where there's the massive shootout. Jedediah, Bobby, Chris, Ryan, Laura, Travis, any of those ones can die or live. And it completely alters the game in different ways where maybe Laura and Max can meet up at the end. Maybe Jacob and Emma can meet up at the end. There's just so much going on for it. I love the fact that the Quarry has all these branches. I've complained in previous videos that, some of them aren't necessarily strong as I think they should be. And I felt a little cheated that although I didn't infect anyone and I got good QTEs, I was quite underwhelmed with my ending. However, like we've mentioned, it's way better than Until Dawn's where it just ends in the lodge, although I do like that final Wendigo in the lodge scene. The reason Until Dawn brings back itself on par with the Quarry is that when we look at the path tab, the Quarry has 15, iconic paths where it kind of notes it and you can kind of scroll through. Until Dawn had 22. That's 7 more paths, and I know quality over quantity is a thing. However, I just look at things like Until Dawn's Rats with Bushy Tails choice, and there's just a lot going for it. And I just think that sheer factor that there's a lot going in there for Until Dawn brings it back on par. And I had to give both a 4. I don't think either one hit a 5 because I feel like each one needs polishing a little bit, and I still feel that Supermassive games can achieve that perfect game. And I do think in the future I could possibly see myself putting a 5 in a category from them.
Yeah, so for me, of all the categories, this was the hardest one to give scores for. So I'll tell you what they are. So obviously for Until Dawn, I've given a 3, and I've given the Quarry a 4. And honestly, it sort of echoes Liam's point. It's the main reason why I've given the nod to Quarry here. Is that it just seems that there's more branches, there's more endings. You think the fact that the game, the Quarry, can actually finish in chapter 9, whereas in Until Dawn, like through choices, whereas with Until Dawn, you are basically forced to see Sam and Mike at the lodge at the end, so like they've got so much plot armor. The thing is, where it was so close for me is the fact that a lot of the choices are actually the same, and it's sort of a criticism that it does feel, it would feel harsh to say like it's a copy and paste job, but when you think back between these games, there's a lot of sequences where you can potentially shoot someone, hide and run, and the thing with the squirrel, you see that in Until Dawn, you see it in the Quarry as well. There's so many parallels. The choices themselves are only differed by the infection. But I do think that the infection element of the Quarry does bring it a peg above. I think as well why the Quarry slightly edges ahead of Until Dawn is the fact that the developers introduced the whole continue looking versus move on to the next sequence choice. Now, for me, I personally really appreciate that because you know what I'm like. I'm an absolute fiend looking for the clues, looking for the evidence, and I sort of get semi-paranoid about moving to the next section of a game because I'm like, oh, maybe I haven't collected everything. Whereas the introduction of this just made me feel a little bit more assured and safe that the developers were almost on my side, if you get me. So yeah, that concludes my grading on that category.
Hey, I mean, very good. I've kept score. Are you ready for the results, mate?
Yes, go on, tell us the result.
Okay, guys, so unless you've had a calculator the whole time, this is the results. So as you can see on screen, I gave Until Dawn 44 and Quarry 41. Jack gave Until Dawn 38 and the Quarry 37. So as we can see, guys, Jack and I have given Until Dawn 82 out of 100, and we have given the Quarry 78 out of 100.
Wow, that is
4 points in it. I mean, Jack, are you surprised by the answers there?
Yes and no. Like, to be honest, before going into this debate, I was thinking overall I would edge it to Until Dawn, and I would edge it because of the story, because of the mystery and just the way things panned out, and obviously the Quarry being too predictable. But the fact that that model was replicated across all of the categories to lead it to a point, and that's between both of us, by the way, that it was actually very close for a total score, that was surprising. So no, I'm quite pleased with how it came out, to be honest. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I had 5s and 4s across the board. I think where we hurt the Quarry on horror massively punished it.
Yeah.
But I think it's accurate. I think now that the Quarry has passed and it's been nearly 2 months or whatever, 2 months actually, where us recording this video, mate, that the Quarry's come out. Yeah, there you go, little insider, guys. We're recording on the 10th of August. That's how organised we are. But I must say that I've let the Quarry stew a little bit, and because I need to do that in order to really process my thoughts. And there is a lot that the Quarry did do wrong for me story-wise, underwhelming endings, underused characters. So I do think I prefer Until Dawn, and it is marginal. But like I say, I think I prefer the mountain setting. I prefer what it did, with the story and the twists, really won me over. Although the Quarry was an epic game, it's just a little bit underneath. The Until Dawn probably is my favorite game, and it always was going to take some thumping. I think it shows that we are maybe generous graders, but also pretty harsh, because we haven't got like any game here in the 90s. In fact, if you round them up, both games we've technically set at 8 out of 10. It came down to decimals, which is what won this for Until Dawn. It was very close.
It's true, yeah. And honestly, like, going back through my scores now, it is so surprising because I've given the Quarry 5 out of 5 in 3 categories. I've only given Until Dawn 5 out of 5 in 1 category. That just goes to show how, like, elsewhere, Until Dawn was just at a consistent level throughout 3s and 4s. Whereas with the Quarry, it was sort of a bit up and down, like you say, especially that horror category where, I mean, you gave it a 2 and I gave it a 1, which I think really hurt its chances. But yeah, honestly, very similar to almost like our Man and Medan Little Hope debate, where we sort of there's very little in it, but obviously, like, there is a winner to some extent, and we've got to Until Dawn in this one.
Yeah, that's literally it. But no, this was really fun doing it. I always wanted to compare both, but it was such a mighty task to do, and we've created this grading system. And there is probably things that we have missed out. We're aware that there's things such as game engine, maybe. I saw people were grading it based on value. That was quite an interesting take. So, I always say when we do these grading and rating videos, guys, our views are completely subjective. It doesn't mean it's right. If you prefer the Quarry, let us know in the comments, because we'd love to hear you debate and defend the Quarry's corner here. If you liked our grading system of our 10-point thing, these are the things that we used on screen now again. Honestly, guys, feel free to use it and tell us your grades. Tell us how much each game got and how close it was, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love hearing what you guys have to say and, your comparisons with our, opinions.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like this video signals the end of our 2 series, obviously Until Dawn and the Quarry. And this is a good way to wrap things up. Like Liam said, there's going to be things that we missed, and I hope just on my end that I articulated my points well enough. But yeah, honestly, guys, like Liam said, put your scores in the comments. How do you react to our lists? And we'll see you in the next video.
You know what, Jack? If you think about it, both games technically got 8 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of like a draw. So to be honest, I don't really know if we have a true winner here. There's got to be a way to settle it, a better way to settle it than our grading system, surely.
I think there is, yeah.
You know what I'm thinking, Jack?
I think I know what you're thinking.
Fight time! And it turns out that Until Dawn does win. So, yeah, apparently you cannot lay a finger on Joshua Washington.